Hey guys, JB here, the Wolf of Wall Street. I am in the Wolf's Den. Got a great guest today. Interesting guy. Not the average guest I have in terms of a bit quirky, but I really like this guy. It is certainly a world-class entrepreneur and businessman. He's probably going to hate me for saying he's quirky because one of the things we go on my podcast, he goes, I don't know why people think I'm quirky. I did this thing in Forbes and I kind of got, was walking around like I was Dr. Evil petting a cat or a rabbit or something. Anyway, I'm speaking about a guy named GT Dave. GT Dave is a founder of a drink that you probably have taken at least once in your life. If not, you should try it. Kombucha. And he has a whole line of products now. He's built a massive organization around this. And it's a really interesting story because, GT Dave comes to entrepreneurship from a perspective that's different than I usually see. His was truly a labor of love, something he believed in, something he just felt so passionate about that he felt like he had to share this product with the world. And step by step, move by move, he was able to build a massive organization around that, the love of spreading this great product, and he became a very wealthy guy in the process. So there's a lot to be learned by this. Listen, I always say, monetizing your passion, it's like, a pipe dream very often. But when it happens, when it is possible, when you have a passion, it really is monetizable, it's amazing. But if I'm asked, would you rather monetize your passion or monetize what I'm good at and is monetizable? I'll go for what I'm good at and is monetizable. Sometimes what your passion is, it just really doesn't have that much juice to it. You really can't make that much. So that's a judgment call you have to make. Hey, do I want to live my passion and not have much money? Or do I want to solve the money problem, building a business or selling something? And then after I've gotten rich, I can focus on my passion. And there's certainly no reason why you can't at least have some of your life dedicated to your passion while you're building your business as well. The point is, though, is that Dave, you learn a lot from this by seeing a guy who goes into it not trying to be a businessman, but then very quickly realizes that if he doesn't learn the rules of business and entrepreneurship and doesn't educate himself and skill up very quickly, he's not going to be able to live his passion. So I really put his feet to the fire during this interview. We go through the critical steps, what made his company the way it is today, what problems he faced, how he overcame them. And it's just really, to me, a very powerful interview where you will learn a ton. All right. So with that, let's just take a quick break here. We'll hear from our sponsor and then off to the interview with myself and GT Dave. All right, here's the deal. As America gets back to work, you want and need every possible advantage out there to succeed in the new economy. Smart companies run on NetSuite by Oracle, the world's #1 cloud-based business system. So receive your free guide right now at netsuite.com/wolf. That is netsuite.com/wolf. All right, so GT Dave, founder of Kombucha? Is there a name of a company behind the product, or is it just kombucha?
No, actually, there certainly is a name of a company. It's called GT's Living Foods.
GT's Living Foods.
Yes.
So the one that I, of course, know, and which most people are familiar with, is kombucha, right?
Yes.
So what's the story? How did you get started in this, healthy foods division of consumer products?
Yeah, well, I was raised a vegetarian, so health and wellness has always been kind of my heartbeat. And so I was raised vegetarian by my parents. In the early 90s, they started making this thing called kombucha, which they actually got the recipe and one of the cultures that you need to make kombucha. They started making it, drinking it, fell in love with it. I was just a teenager at the time. I thought it was very weird, so I didn't want anything to do with it. But it actually wasn't until it helped my mom with her breast cancer that I decided to give it another try. And then I started to make it, drink it, and then quickly fell in love.
What I believe it or not, I hate to say I never tried it.
You've never tried it?
I've never tried it.
Oh my God.
We got to get a bottle here.
Let's pull up a truckload.
Yeah. But what exactly is it now? Is it tea, I thought, or no?
Well, technically, yes, right? So it starts off as an organic green and black tea that you ferment, and you ferment it with a kombucha culture, which is pretty much like a plant. It lives, it breathes, it reproduces. So you take that culture and put it in a bowl of this brewed tea, and you allow it to ferment for about 7 to 10 days. And after that, call it 10 days, it completely transforms. It no longer tastes like tea. It actually is kind of sour and a little bit naturally effervescent. It has a flavor profile similar to like a cider. And the health benefits are remarkable. I mean, it's been consumed for thousands of years. It was first reportedly consumed in 221 BC. And those that consumed it talked about health, immunity, living long. I mean, there was a small village in Manchuria, China, where everybody who drank their homemade batch of kombucha lived into their hundreds. So that's actually the story that was shared with my parents, which is why I think they quickly became obsessed with it.
Okay. And so what's the plant that's the basis of the is it called the kombucha plant or
The kombucha culture.
The culture. It's a
Yeah.
culture. So it's a yeast culture, basically?
Well, yeah, so the name that a lot of people call this culture is a SCOBY, which is an acronym for symbiotic colony of bacteria and yeast. So it looks like a mushroom, which is another thing that people describe it as, because it's somewhat circular in its shape. It's kind of rubbery, has the texture of that of a mushroom. But the reason why it's circular is it takes on the shape of the container that it's typically fermented in, which is typically a bowl or a jar, which is round.
Right.
And what's beautiful about it is, first of all, it's completely naturally created. It's symbiotic, meaning it has all these beneficial microorganisms that live together in harmony. And together they have a synergistic quality. And again, it reproduces after every batch, and everything that's in kombucha is naturally created, which is pretty remarkable because it's rare to find that in foods these days.
Okay, so now you first heard of this with your parents, and you were like, "Oh, this is not cool enough for me." If you're a teenager,
Well, I was
right?
like, it smells bad, it tastes bad.
And when did you first see the potential in this thing? How old were you?
Well, you know, it was interesting. I mean, I was very young at the time. And so I was a young gay boy. I was about 15 years old. I was going to Beverly Hills High. I was being bullied. I was ditching school. I was going nowhere fast, to be honest.
Right.
But this thing called kombucha was permeating in my household, right? My parents were drinking it, becoming obsessed with it. They had 1 to 2 to 5 to eventually 7 batches going on at any given point. So the house started to smell like vinegar.
What do you mean, like batches, like different flavors, or just fresh batches of kombucha?
Fresh batches, yeah. To make kombucha, the more you consume, the more you have to make. And because it takes a minimum of 7 days to ferment, you technically need 1 for every day of the week if you're consuming a lot.
Sure.
So again, cut to, I'm this young boy living in Bel Air, didn't have a lot of friends, being bullied. This weird thing called kombucha is kind of everywhere, and that I turn, everywhere I smell. And then my mother came home one day and shared the news that she had positive results from her cancer diagnosis, and that the doctors themselves accredited the kombucha, which she had been drinking now for about 2 years, for helping her. So it was really this culmination of me not doing well in school, me not having purpose. My background is health and wellness, and then now this thing called kombucha helped my mom in many ways. I felt like it could help others. And honestly, it just gave me purpose. I wasn't looking to start a business. Honestly, I was too young to even know the meaning of being an entrepreneur or starting a business. And this remains true to this day. I like to lead with my heart. And so my heart felt like this is something that I needed to do, and it became my lifelong mission. And the rest is history.
So when did you formally launch the business?
In February 1995.
95. Wow, so a long time ago.
A long time ago. Okay,
and how did it take off, from the start? Did it like have rocky beginning, or did people just loved it and embraced it right away?
Well, you know what's really interesting? So remember in 1995, what was considered cutting edge was tofu. What was considered healthy in beverages was Sobe and Snapple. Right? So the world really wasn't ready for kombucha as far as like the masses are concerned. So literally for the first 5 years of my professional life, it was this uphill battle. It was trying to like encourage people to have an open mind, to understand the beauty of fermented foods, and to really change their consciousness, and more importantly, change their palate. Because again, kombucha is sour, it's not sweet. Up until recently in this country, we've been obsessed with syrupy.
It's almost like the way what's it? Pinkberry became popular with the sour type of yogurt, right?
Kind of, yeah.
And in a sense, it's changing the palate taste from like more of the tasty delight sort of street, which is like a sugary one, to a sour one.
Yeah. And you know what's funny is when I was starting my company, Pinkberry, as you just pointed out, was becoming very popular. And when I would sample my kombucha at the stores, they would actually say, "Wow, this has a sour note that I really love. I've never tried before." And they compare it to Pinkberry, even like plain yogurt.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So the first 5 years you were struggling to sort of educate the market, right?
Yes.
And then when did you first start seeing the first glimmers of success?
Well, you know what's interesting? I saw a combination of success as well as resistance. And the reason why that was really interesting for me is the success motivated me, but the resistance kept me very humble. So like to answer your question more pointedly, within the first month, I would get phone calls, right, from consumers that tried my kombucha and left me messages saying how it had changed their life. So that was the first indication that I was on to something special.
And what were the typical like things that
testimonials?
What were they having help with? Digestive issues? Was it breathing issues? What was it?
Well, you know what's really interesting? When it comes to health food, it really works with the body to strengthen the body's defenses so the body can actually heal itself. So unlike a drug where I say, take this pill and you'll feel this one thing, with kombucha, it's like you drink it and it will work with your body to fix whatever ails you. So that can be your immune system, your digestion, more energy, better sleeping, healthy skin, healthy hair, clearer eyes. I mean, the list goes on. And that was really what was so remarkable. It's not like I was running around telling people what to experience.
Right.
They were telling me. So, but the resistance part is, again, I mean, I had stores that would call me and say, get this shit off my shelf because like it smells bad, it tastes bad, there's something growing in it. I'm scared that this is going to get my consumer sick.
Smells bad in the sense that wasn't it bottled though? Or when you open the bottle up, it smells bad? They meant.
Yeah, when you open it. So people thought, again, in this country until recently, when things ferment, with the exception of beer and wine, we think fermentation is something like juice going bad. So especially in a non-alcoholic beverage, if you reach for it and smell it and it smells kind of sour, you're like, oh God, this must have gone bad, right? So I can't tell you how many calls I received of stores saying, I think your stuff has gone bad and I think it could get somebody sick.
Got it.
So that was the resistance that I was facing.
So just to flash forward for a second, how big is the market for your product today? What's the market size of kombucha?
Well, it changes depending on who you ask. I think the most common answer, it's in the billions.
Okay.
It's now a global market. So kombucha no longer just exists exclusively in North America. It now exists in Europe and Asia and other parts of the world. In many ways, it has spearheaded this phenomenon of fermented food, specifically fermented beverages. And
is kombucha though I'm just confused though. Is kombucha the brand name, your brand name, or anything could be called kombucha that has this fungus? Then but your brand name is kombucha anyway, right? You see what I'm saying?
No. Actually, that's a great opportunity for me to clarify.
Sure.
So my brand is called Synergy.
Okay.
Right? And so we make kombucha, and kombucha is like milk.
It's kombucha by Synergy.
Yes, exactly.
Got it. Okay, good. Yeah. So other people can make kombucha theoretically and sell it?
Technically, yes. I mean, right now, there really is not stopping anybody or any company from making sparkling water and calling it kombucha because there technically isn't a standard of identity, which, by the way, I'm looking to change. But yes, kombucha technically is a name of this fermented
Got it. Okay, good. Yeah. All right. So your Synergy, and because I know, unless then now I'm like imagining it, but I thought I saw the name kombucha on the label.
No, well, you're probably thinking we have one product line called Classic Kombucha. And that was my very, very, very first recipe that I started 25 years ago. And about 5 years in, maybe even 3 years in, actually, I really wanted to expand the American kind of appeal to kombucha. So I came up with the name Synergy because Synergy sounds like energy and it sounds fun. It sounds healthy.
Right.
So that's what I kind of rebranded with. But we still have a product called kombucha. So I think that's what you're saying.
So is it cold?
Is it refrigerated?
No. So wait, I'm trying to think. So when I go on the shelf, I could swear I've seen things that say kombucha on the shelf. So but that could be anyone's product?
Technically, yes.
But is it all your product mostly? 95%?
Yeah. I have the lion's share of the marketplace.
Okay.
So, up until about 5 years ago, there was really just my brand, maybe 2 other brands on the shelf. But as you probably witnessed, like the health and wellness space is exploding.
Yeah.
Yes. It feels like almost every day there's a new brand of kombucha.
Sure.
Which isn't a good thing, by the way, because it starts to dilute and confuse, as you just pointed out, like what it makes kombucha and who's making kombucha.
So what do you think you owe your success to in a marketplace that doesn't really have a clearly defined brand, yet you dominate the marketplace, right?
Yeah.
What is it?
Well, I think it's a combination of things, to be honest. So first of all, and this is not me trying to brag or boast, but we take pride.
Your kombucha is the best kombucha.
It is, yeah. And the reason for that is we take pride in everything that we do. It truly is a labor of love. Right. We pour our heart and souls into every bottle. And so again, people feel it when they drink it. Sure. It has an energetic quality, a vibration, if you will. Mm-hmm. So that has been the secret of my success.
Power versus force.
Yeah.
Right?
And then my number one.
You know that book? Great book.
No, I don't know.
Vibrations and everything's got a vibration, positive vibration. Yeah, my ex-wives was into that. A lot of ex-wives was really into that whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah, my parents are very much into that. I mean, again, that's why I believe that it's not just the quality of the food and the ingredients, it's also the energy that you use to make it.
Now, you said you grew up in Bel Air. So did you grow up with money? Wealthy?
Not really. I like to say I grew up in the slums of Bel Air.
The slums of Bel Air.
Because, Bel Air is actually...
Well, compared to where I grew up, I think the slums of Bel Air are really freaking wealthy, because I grew up in the slums of New York.
Well, yeah.
Not the slums. I live in a middle class neighborhood.
Everything is relative. Everything is relative.
Exactly.
But, I mean, for me, it was actually a modest home. We lived in the canyons. We didn't have any city view from our home. So, actually, all we had was these mountain views, which in many ways, it was horrible. It was very rough. It was very
horrible. I know.
Yeah. Right? But the reason why I'm bringing this up is it allowed us to be very grounded as children. Sure. And also, by the way, my parents took me to India when I was a very young child to study Eastern teachings and Eastern philosophy. So in many ways, I had this interesting kind of balance between East and West. Yeah. I was Catholic and religious, but then I was spiritual and kind of, very open-minded to the higher power that be. So
was there a certain point in time when you said, wow, this is actually starting to work. This is like a real business. I'm making money right now. I really see a path forward. When was that?
I would say I didn't start making like real money until probably the 6th or 7th year, because I treated my company initially like an overprotected parent. And so I would sometimes I would choose the hard way at all times, which a lot of times was the most expensive way. So I wasn't really making a lot of money.
Give me an example.
Well, I mean, honestly, even to this day, all our batches are less than 5 gallons. So if you think about, for a company my size, we have hundreds and thousands of batches going on at any given point, whereas my next competitor probably has like 10 5,000 gallon tanks. So it honestly, not much has changed. It's just that if you're patient and you stay true to what you believe in, eventually the success comes, and eventually people, resonate with what you're doing. And so it took 6 years for people to finally understand how special the kombucha that I was making was. And then it really took off like wildfire. I mean, we were only selling on the West Coast, but by around, again, that 6th or 7th year, the phone was ringing off the hook for people in New York.
Why?
Because this positive word of mouth.
Just word of mouth?
Yeah. I mean, people...
There was nothing that happened?
There was no advertising. There was no Oprah. There was no Jennifer Aniston.
Was there any moment, though, was there any virality to something that happened, or someone using it, or influencer-based marketing, even if it was organic?
100%. I mean, you had Madonna, Tom Cruise, you had agents at CAA, you had the executives at Paramount Studios, Oprah was drinking it. These people just weren't publicly talking about it to the mainstream people. They were just talking to their peers.
I guess what I'm saying is that I have a philosophy on business, and I think that all successful people will buy into this philosophy. And what I always say is that there's only one way to get rich in this world, and that's quick. But the difference is that what people don't realize is what I talking about is not a get-rich-quick scheme. What I'm saying is that you work really, really hard and you don't get the result. And you work really, really hard, you don't get the result. And you work really, really hard. It could be years of really, really hard. But finally, when something happens, when that moment, that magic moment hits, bam, then like the money starts pouring in avalanches of abundance. And they're like, oh, he's an overnight success. Yeah, after 6 years of hard work.
Right, yeah, 6 years in the making.
But there is like this moment when all of a sudden you're like, I couldn't believe it. And the money's put. I hear this again and again.
Yeah.
And it's this idea that so much of being successful in business is doing what I call learning how to fail elegantly.
Right.
How do you go into business and try to grow and be wrong or not exactly right, and then pivot, keep changing your approach, so you live to fight another day? Because eventually it's almost about lining up the elements of success, and then something happens, that spark hits, and then, as you said, like you had that moment, you're like, all of a sudden it's like the money's pouring in. Like I couldn't keep track of it. It was happening so fast, right?
Yeah.
So is that sort of what happened? You just like sort of plodded along, trying, failing, but not failing, but just like sort of no massive success. Then just something, sort of one little, probably was it a marketing distinction, or just was it sheer critical mass? You reached a certain number of people that started talking about it at once. Something must have happened to light the flame, so to speak, after 6 years of hard work.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, it was the 10-year mark that was really when everything that you just described is what I was experiencing in 2005. And the reason why is, first of all, everything you said was very accurate. I think all entrepreneurs need to know how to fail and to learn from their failure. And it actually is not a failure if you learn from it. It is a failure if you don't.
No, it's a result,
right?
basically.
Yeah.
It's a negative result, right?
Exactly.
I think what happens to a lot of people is they either fail miserably, like they fail and it's a disaster because they either put their last dollar in.
They over-leverage themselves.
Or they didn't take the right meanings away from the negative results and they don't learn from it. And
they didn't learn from it. Yeah. So I had many stumblings throughout those first 10 years, but again, I embraced them and I learned from them.
What were some of the biggest ones that you had?
The packaging. To be honest, in my world, the packaging is the face and the soul of the brand. And so I remember I had this kind of rinky-dinky, almost homemade, look like barbecue sauce type product. And I remember I'd go into stores and I'd sample. And people would come up to me and say like, wow, this tastes really interesting and it makes me feel great. But I want to let you know, I would have never purchased it because, honestly, the packaging sucks. And so that's when I started to realize that the packaging, the exterior packaging, didn't match the quality of the interior contents of the beverage.
So what'd you do about that?
I dramatically changed it, like a 180. I designed a new glass bottle, which was custom. Spent about 18 months studying call it the packaging architecture that I wanted to eventually execute. And by the time I released it, it was in 2005. And so those that were already into the product were talking about it.
Sure.
And now that it looked similar to how it tasted or how it made people feel, which again was elegant and upscale, that's when it took off.
So it's almost like I said, there's that one last piece.
Yeah,
it's like, you know what, everything's great, but I had to fix the packaging to make it match.
Or I had to change my name.
Or whatever it might be, 100%. Right? And that was it. Then it just sort of, next thing you know, like, whoa. And then you face a whole different set of problems as you start to try to scale, right?
Yeah.
So tell me about that. What happened when you tried to scale it?
Well, so actually what happened was then it started to sell out. And, again, making kombucha is not like making vitamin water or a juice, right? You have to ferment it. It takes time. So the more that you need to make, not only the more time that you need, but the more space. So in 2005 was the first time that I was selling out, and every delivery I made would sell out in like 10 minutes. And that was really interesting because I had experienced some success prior to that, but never to that degree. And so every time we would expand, which at this time I was in a small industrial unit in a complex in Gardena here in Los Angeles. And I would expand to the unit next door. So I go from 2,000 square feet to 4,000 square feet. And within like 6 months after the expansion, again, we were selling out. So it was that moment where I was like, all right, something big is happening and I need to make a big decision. And just like you said, I was scared to make that next big leap because I was concerned that I was going to over leverage myself. Right. Because, easy come, easy go. Trends come fast and die hard. And I was worried that I might just be participating in a trend.
Sure.
And by the time I've expanded, which by the way, I went from 8,000 square feet of a facility to 50,000 square feet, which at the time was a lot.
That was your big jump.
Yeah. And I prayed. I was like, I hope this doesn't ruin me. And luckily it didn't. And from there, again, the sky was the limit. We just continued to grow. And every 3 years we had to open up a new facility or expand it. And so, it's been a wild ride.
So how many employees do you currently have?
A lot. Hundreds.
Hundreds of employees.
Yeah.
And gross sales?
A lot.
A lot? Over 100 million?
I would say it's in that territory. Honestly, listen, I try to not focus on the money because let's be honest, money's great, but it's not, I don't worship the dollar.
Well, I'm not asking you so much for trying to get your net worth. I don't really care. You're a nice guy and that's what matters. And you also have a lot of knowledge to share with people. I'm just trying to get a sense
of my success.
No, not at all. Just a sense of the business itself, because that gives me more insight into what questions to ask. In the sense that there are, for instance, I've had some massive companies.
Right.
And I've had some small companies.
Yeah.
And I know that at each stage, because there's things that happen at $10 million companies, there's different set of problems at $100 million companies,
100%.
and different set of problems at $1 billion companies.
Right.
So I'm just trying to sense where you are in that continuum. Have you broken heavily into the overseas market now?
We just started to scratch the surface in the UK.
Okay.
And the reason why it's taken this long is we still make all our products from scratch here in California. So imagine a beverage that has its shelf life about 120 days in a glass bottle, and it's liquid. It's very expensive to ship. We currently ship it to UK by boat, and it takes about 2.5 weeks to get there. Yeah, I know.
Wait a second. It has a 120-day shelf life, and you ship it by boat?
Yes.
I would suggest you make it locally.
Well, you're right. I mean, I think that is eventually what we'll end up doing. But again, to make the best kombucha, it's not easy. I mean, I still, after this interview,
I wouldn't say you outsource the manufacturing, but I would just say get your own plant there so you can like not have the shipping, you know.
No, that's what I'm referencing. But like after this interview, I'm going to the office to taste test. Like I taste test Monday through Friday. Like our batches are like babies and they have their own identity, their own personality, and you got to stay close with it. I mean, that's what makes kombucha so special. We're not.
Can you taste the difference of all the different kombuchas?
Oh, 100%.
Really?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Could I?
I don't know. We've never tried it, right? So
not the COVID-19. I can't taste that. No,
well, yeah.
Taste a little bit now.
Well, first, step one, we have to get you to drink kombucha, and then step two will be to help you understand the difference between good and bad kombucha.
All right, listen. You don't need to tell me that running a business is hard work, but if you're still using QuickBooks and spreadsheets, chances are that you're making it far more difficult than it needs to be. That's why it is time to upgrade now to NetSuite by Oracle. Stop paying for multiple systems. Don't give you the information you need when you need it, and ditch all those spreadsheets and old, outdated software programs that you've outgrown, and just upgrade now. NetSuite is the world's #1 cloud business system. Bottom line, it gives you visibility and control over your financials, HR, inventory, e-commerce, and more. It's everything you need, all in one place. Best of all, NetSuite is for everyone. Whether your business is doing $1 million or $100 million a year, you're going to save a ton of money and a ton of time as well with NetSuite. In fact, over 21,000 companies are using NetSuite right now, so you'll be in great company right alongside them. So let NetSuite show you how they'll benefit your business with a free product tour at netsuite.com/wolf. That's netsuite.com/wolf. Schedule your free product tour right now. It's netsuite.com/wolf. That's netsuite.com/wolf. All right. So support for the Wolf's Den is brought to you by Manscaped, one of my favorite companies. Listen, Manscaped is the premier, world famous below the waist grooming expert for the world. This is like it. It's like the main player in the men's grooming game. They have products available all over Europe, Canada, UK, Australia, and of course, right here in the good US of A. Now listen, guys, you know, I know a lot of you don't like to talk about this sort of stuff here, this sort of shit, right? But me, I talk about anything. That's why I'm the wolf, right? You gotta stay groomed. I'm talking about your ears. You don't want the enchanted forest coming out of your ears. You don't want like freaking nose hairs coming out, which is the grossest thing ever. And also the private parts down here, right? And you know what I'm talking about, guys. No one wants to see the freaking wild, enchanted jungle down there, okay? You send women running for the hills like that. Trust me, I know. Not firsthand, but I've heard it, okay? Manscaped's gonna give you the tools that you need to keep that shit under wraps, to keep it under control. Manscaped is truly absolute state of the art when it comes to keeping your ball hairs in check. All right? You know what they have? I love the names of their products. They call it the Lawnmower 3.0, by the way. It's an electric trimmer that uses a ceramic blade to make sure no accidents happen. You don't want to cut them family jewels off, right? You want to cut the balls off with the hairs. You want to keep the balls and lose the hairs, right? Bottom line, the only thing that's going to get cut on your balls are your hairs on your balls. That's it. The family jewels are safe. And of course, for those embarrassing nostril hairs, those nose hairs, I always thought, by the way, those nose hairs, you pick one out, you'll like die of a hemorrhage. The blood will come out, right? Well, guess what? They have something called the Weed Whacker electric trimmer. Kills those nose hairs. I mean, what's your worst nightmare? You're in a meeting, you're trying to sound serious, and you know people are looking at you and they're like analyzing your body language, your facial expressions. But what they're really looking at is this freaking gigantic hair sticking out of your nose. They're saying, what is wrong with the person that walks around with a giant hair sticking out of their nostril? Not the fact they haven't gotten laid in 5 years, you know that for sure, but what kind of person of power? Does an expert in their field really have giant hair sticking out of their nose? I don't think so, all right? It's an unsightly, gross, embarrassing thing. Again, with Manscaped's products, their Weed Whacker, that will never happen again. Specially designed to keep those nose hairs and the dreaded ears hair. That's like when you see a guy with giant ears. And by the way, you just know that like as you get older, you know, that shit just keeps growing. Your ears and your nose keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger, right? And the hair stops growing when you want it to grow and starts growing in abundance when you don't want it to grow, okay? So this stuff takes care of that. Manscaped is your company for this. Now, the best part right now, the Wolf's Den listeners, all of you, you're going to get 20% off plus free shipping on all of Manscaped's products. I'm telling you, this is the time to buy. Claim your discount right away. Get 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com/wolf. Again, that's 20% off. Free shipping at manscaped.com/wolf. Your balls will thank you, as will your earlobes, your inner ear, and your nose. All right, so I want to tell you guys about one of my favorite parts of every morning, and that's when I have my Athletic Greens. Listen, Athletic Greens is my absolute favorite nutritional supplement. Gives me an extra boost for the day. If you know anything about me, then you know that personal performance is a very high priority for me. Now, when I say performance, I'm not just talking about the body, I'm talking about the mind too, because when you feed your gut the right fuel, then your brain is going to be in its absolute sharpest as well. That's why when I have just one scoop of Athletic Greens, I get that feeling, that tingling sensation when your brain and your body are really firing off together perfectly. And that's why I know I'm ready to go out and close at the highest level possible as a salesperson, as an entrepreneur, as a businessman. Makes sense? So whether you're training for a marathon, you're trying to lose a few pounds, or you want to elevate your energy and your focus, Athletic Greens is for you. And if your results are anything like mine, I can virtually guarantee you'll have that extra edge in performance that sets you apart. Now, what is Athletic Greens? Well, Athletic Greens is a daily all-in-one superfood powder, and it is by far the easiest and most nutritious habit you can add to your health routine. One scoop of Athletic Greens contains 75 vitamins, minerals, and whole food sourced ingredients. Now, in the past, if you want to get all those nutrients, you'd have to spend 10 minutes just swallowing pills, right? But with Athletic Greens, it just takes one scoop. It'll increase your energy and focus, help with your digestion, support your immune system, and fill the gaps in your diet. And here's the deal. Right now, Athletic Greens is offering a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free travel packs for the Wolf Den listeners. You'll basically never have to buy vitamin D again. So whether you're looking for peak performance in your life or better health, Athletic Greens is going to be the fastest, most effective solution to boost your personal performance. Simply visit athleticgreens.com/bonus to get started with this limited time offer. Again, simply visit athleticgreens.com/bonus and get your free year supply of vitamin D and 5 free travel packs. Let's get specific here about some of the steps for someone that's listening right now that wants to go into business. And let's say this is like sort of like a drink. Like I think, I've always, dabbled with doing something in that space. I never have, you know? Yeah. But what are the steps? So how does someone, let's say I have XYZ drink.
Yeah.
All right. What's step one? I want to take XYZ drink and I want to turn it into a branded drink business. What do I do first?
Okay. So to be honest, there's 2 very specific paths. So I can talk about both of them. I'll talk about the most common one, and then I'll talk about the way I did it. Okay. So currently, the most popular way of starting a company, especially in the CPG beverage space, is to come up with a name. Link yourself to an emerging category. So whether that's keto, whether that's almond milk, whether that's oat milk, whatever, right? So typically it's something that people have already heard about, or at least has a health benefit that everybody's looking at, like currently right now is immunity, right? Design your packaging, get your formula, and raise money. And you can raise money without even making your first sale, which can be extraordinary because you're technically, call it a $50 million valued company overnight and you haven't sold one product. But that's how a lot of brands these days start. And what then they do is by raising the money, they're bringing in a lot of investors that are rather VCs or PE firms. And they say, all right, if you want to start this beverage company and this is the product line, this is your marketing strategy, go heavy on social media. This is what your packaging should look like. Here's where you launch. Here's who you're going to partner up with as far as the retail space. And if your product's good, you'll experience success, because right now the health and wellness space, as we just talked about, has exploded, right? So anything that at least initially to the untrained eye looks healthy will sell.
All right, so go back a second. So what you're saying, let me slow it down, correct me if I got it right.
Okay.
So the idea is come up with a name, a great sexy brand, position it in some way into a burgeoning market like immunity, right? And then go raise and then tell a good story about it, basically, yes. And then go to the VCs and raise money.
Yes.
Bring in the right strategic investors, and those strategic investors will help you execute the business plan by directing you to experts in each individual part of that business.
Yes.
What about people with no track record, though? How likely are they to be able to sell a VC on a new drink if they've never been in business before?
Well, honestly, in this market, which to me is a mistake, to be honest, but I'll say it anyway.
Sure.
In this market, you don't have to be anybody.
Okay.
It's really your product that speaks for itself.
So you just have any decent, sexy product.
Yeah.
You can find VCs.
Yeah. Like, again, 2 years ago, if you were a nobody and said, I'm doing a CBD drink, somebody would just walk up to you with a stack of cash and say, let's go, buddy. Right. So again, that's very exciting. Now let's talk about the consequences of that. Mm-hmm. Number one, you probably sold most of your equity in your company, mm-hmm. and you'll wake up one day to realize you have no more control.
Right.
Okay. Number two, you've grown by leaps and bounds that you didn't really have those mistakes that we talked about earlier. So you haven't really learned your lessons. Mm-hmm. So now when you do learn your lessons, you're probably making them in a very large scale, which potentially will cause your company to crumble. Mm-hmm. So those are the big watch outs, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, as they say, easy come, easy go.
Right.
The bigger you are, the harder you fall. All those kind of cliche statements apply to that, which is why it's a slippery slope. So now let's cut to how I started my business.
Okay.
So I started my business as a young guy, right? Not looking to start a business, in love with something called kombucha that I believed had touched my mother's life, and I thought it could touch others. Mm-hmm. And all I wanted was to make the best kombucha possible, that, as cheesy as it sounds, could make the world a better place and improve people's health. Mm-hmm. And that's all I wanted to do, whether that was one bottle, 100,000 bottles, or 1 billion bottles. I didn't care. And so that was my mission. And I didn't worship the dollar. I didn't let the success come to my head, because a lot of times when you do, it's game over. As soon as you think that you walk on water is when actually you're going to drown. Mm-hmm. And so that was kind of my North Star, and continues to be my North Star for the last 25 years that I've ran my business, is that yes, the money's nice, but the purpose is even better.
Do you like do you like nice things? Do you drive a fast car, or do you live in a big house?
Hey, listen, absolutely.
Okay.
I like to reward myself. I live in a nice home. Okay. Drive a nice car.
Okay.
I wear nice clothes. I like jewelry.
Yeah.
But the difference between about me and some people, and I'm not here to compare,
sure,
is some people think that their nice things are part of their identity, and or they let the things that they own them. Mm-hmm. So I know this is easy for me to say, but I'll say it anyway, is that I could exist without all this stuff. It doesn't define me. And I make a conscious effort almost every day to meditate and reflect and reset myself and be like, what path am I on? Am I GT Dave, billionaire, lives in Beverly Hills, drives a successful car, runs a successful business?
Drives a nice car, runs a successful business?
Yeah, all of that. Or am I just another human being that's working really hard to make a difference with my life?
Right.
And to prove to people that I'm making a positive impact on this world.
Okay.
And that is what I always aspire. And that's what keeps me sane. That keeps me detached.
And having a lot of money doesn't suck.
Well, listen.
It's very convenient, right?
I've said this before, that I believe that money cannot buy you happiness, but it can absolutely buy you misery.
That's my famous quote.
Yeah.
Right?
And so I've seen it. I've seen it happen to me. Yeah. I've seen it happen to people I love. But to be honest, the one thing, and I've said this before in other interviews, that in my mind, at an early age, the guardrails for success were put up, is that when I was starting my business, about 2 years into it, my brother Justin, who is not that much older than me, was diagnosed with cancer and died. And he was in the same household with me. I was, again, this young, aspiring entrepreneur, feeling like I had this new lease on life, and I found my purpose. But on the complete opposite side of the household was my brother, not too much older than me, slowly dying. And then he died 6 months later. And so that image of him is burnt into my mind. And whenever I think I'm taking my shit too seriously, I think of him and I think, you know what? When he was on his deathbed, did he talk about how popular he was? Did he talk about how cool he was, or the girls he dated, the car he drove, or the money in his bank? No. He just wanted to be loved. And he just wanted to be, he wanted to tell the people that he loved them.
Was he like you? Were you guys similar or very different?
We were similar yet different. I mean, we were raised similarly, both vegetarians, but at some point he gave up the vegetarian lifestyle. You know, I believe I was a little bit more spiritual than him. And again, I'm not here to compare myself to him. He had a rough life. Like, he was born with a lot of health issues, and my mother used to always refer to him as a sacrificial lamb. Like, he essentially took all the negativity and all the problems that me and my other brother Adam didn't have to deal with. And so, you know, he was on a different path, but I think watching him be on his path is a lesson that I've learned and applied in my everyday life.
Do you think you're different because of his death? Did that change you in some way?
Absolutely. Yeah.
How did it change you?
Listen, it's a daily reminder that there's so much more in this life than what we understand. That, you know, we get caught up in our egos, we get caught up in our possessions, we get caught up in our successes and our reputations and all of that, which is, it's okay to put some value and some weight into that, but there's this other aspect of life that I feel that it's easy for us to overlook, and it's the love, the kindness, the compassion, the empathy, how we treat our loved ones and how we treat a stranger. And again, what do we go to bed with every night in our hearts and in our heads? Is it love? Is it gratitude? Or is it just pure ego? And I'm not here to judge anybody, but I can only judge myself. That I know during the times in my life when I've lived a very selfish existence, I feel it rotting my soul. And when I've been able to kind of reset and cleanse myself of those kind of selfish intentions and live more of a selfless life, I feel I'm being the best person that I can be. And if I died today, I'd have no regrets. Because that was the thing that I learned about my brother, is that towards the tail end of his life, he was dying with regret. And believe me, when you see somebody dying with regret, it is the ugliest, most unfortunate thing that you would never wish on your worst enemy, including yourself.
What do you see among other entrepreneurs in their 20s and 30s? What do you see the biggest mistakes they make?
The biggest mistake, and I think it just has to do with the fact that we've lived in this instant gratification world for the last 10 years, is that there's a little bit of entitlement. And I believe there's two human cancers, self-entitlement and complacency. And they sometimes can, believe it or not, feed off of each other, right? Because self-entitlement means that you think you deserve it, and complacency is almost like you feel like you don't have to do anything else, right? And
so that, you like, you know, you almost okay.
Yeah, you feel like you've kind of arrived, right? Like you've already made it.
Yeah.
And, you know, I believe that's the biggest mistake that a lot of people make, especially the youth right now, is that they think everything's so easy, right? Pull up my Google, pull up my smartphone. There's an app for that, all that stuff. But there's something to be said about kind of paying your dues. And, you know, I think that's something that, to be honest, I think COVID is teaching us right now. It's teaching us, like, the world was on this, like, paper thin degree of success, and all it took was this very big issue, but still something that, you know, companies were going under 2 weeks after the shutdown. And it just goes to show that we weren't as healthy economically as we thought. And I think it's eye-opening.
How much do you think you know about business at this point, and how much do you think you have to learn?
Wow. Well, first of all, I think...
Let me go a little further. Okay. You answer quickly, which is great, by the way. But in other words, before you answer, I want to give you a little more food for thought. In other words, I know that obviously you're the sort of guy that the obvious answer is, well, I'll never stop learning. That's an obvious answer. I'm sure that'll be part of your answer. But I don't mean it like that. I'm saying is, do you consider yourself at this point, like, you know, I've been around the block a couple thousand times now. I kind of know my shit. Like, I know what I'm doing. No one's going to take advantage of me, so to speak. Or do I still feel like every day I kind of show up and I'm wondering if they're going to figure out, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a combination, right? I think there's certain things I'm like, all right, I'm a master of making kombucha. I've been making it for 25 years. Like, me and that culture are one, right? But when it comes to general business practices or general business issues, every day's a new day. Because the one thing that I've learned, I learned this early on, is, you know, what makes a lot of businesses great is people. But people can be the best and the worst thing about running a business, because people are unpredictable.
Right.
So, you know, if you have a business like mine where you work with a lot of people, you never can really think that you've cracked that code. You always have to be like eyes wide open, ready for that curveball, ready for that unexpected situation. And in many ways, you prepare yourself for it. So when it happens, you're not devastated or you're not cut off,
What's
off
the
guard.
smartest thing you've done in the last 2 years in business?
This interview. No, just kidding.
Obviously. What's the smartest business move you've done?
The smartest business move, I'll tell you, it's embracing my public personality, or at least the relationship that I as a human being have with my products. For the last 23 years, so cut to, it stopped 2 years ago, I was letting the product and the brand speak for itself. And I always was behind the scenes. And I was really just allowing the product to be the star, to be the hero, to be all of that, which again, I don't regret. But what happened is about 2 years ago, Forbes magazine did a story on me. And it was the first time that I was really showcased in a public environment. And to be honest, it wasn't a good portrayal of me.
Not as bad as my first Forbes article.
Oh, really? Well, we have that in common. We'll have to exchange notes.
The movie, they're like, this destroyed me.
Really?
It was the best thing that happened to me. It made me famous when I was a kid.
Well, that's the thing, is that, every cloud has a silver lining. So just like you, that was my silver lining.
What did they say about you?
Well, honestly, they did a dual story. So they did a written article and they did a video article, right? Or a video story. And the video story really portrayed me as this kind of quirky, unusual guy that like lived in this dark home in Beverly Hills with like no friends or no sign of life. And I felt like it was a remake of American Psycho. And so I didn't know I was cast or starring in that movie. But what happened was, because people didn't know who I was, it was so easy for them to judge me. And that was the eye-opening experience. So I was like, wow, so if it just took one little video that portrayed me in a very peculiar way for everybody now to jump to conclusions and say, oh my God, he's a weirdo, then I, as a person, have not done a good enough job of showcasing who I really am.
Okay.
And so from that point on, I became brave and fearless with telling people who I am and what I stand for and what my beliefs are and all of that. And so through that, I think I've humanized my brand as well as humanized myself, which I think is one of the best things that anybody can do. Because when people see you as another person, not just as another brand or just another product, there's emotion there that is really priceless in my opinion.
And what's the biggest mistake you made recently in the last year or two with business you think you would change?
Not pursuing e-com fast enough. Which again, to my defense, as I said earlier, we make a very unique product that's very short shelf life, perishable, all that stuff. So selling on the internet, like through the Amazons of the world, is not easy. But I think it's important that, I think I was a little too intimidated by the proposition. So I didn't rise to the occasion at the degree that I should have. Right. But I think COVID has certainly reminded me that I'm late to the game. So, again,
I think it'll be a natural for e-commerce, by the way. It's still heavy, though. I mean,
it's heavy, it's glass, it's refrigerated. It's not a slam dunk, but it's certainly not impossible.
Yeah, because I have a friend who's into business of shipping, like what's called farmer's market or something. And his biggest issue is the weight and the shipping for frozen foods and stuff like that. It's not a simple thing.
Yeah, and because we are absolutely committed to making the best product possible, even down to the one bottle, as if with e-com, there was always that concern that it wasn't going to make it to the end user in its perfect condition. So that's what I was a little apprehensive about. But now, again, I've embraced it, and we're doing it.
Where do you see your business in 3 years from now?
3 years?
How much larger than it is today, percentage-wise, and what will be different in your business in 3 years?
So percentage-wise, I see the business growing in 3 years about 60%. From its current value or our current revenue. In 2017, I renamed the company GT's Living Foods and not GT's Kombucha or anything else, because I really wanted to have the stake in the ground, if you will, of who we are and who we are not. So we really stand for these beautiful living foods that support life, provide life, and make people feel more alive.
Living food being culture, growing.
Not dead. Right. And so what I believe in the next 3 to 5 years is what we will be as a brand and a company is we will be, the owners of this beautiful portfolio of products that really are the best that you can consume and the best that you can find. And we are going to continue to be pioneers in these uncharted waters of fermented foods and living foods, because I truly believe, as you look around this world right now, especially with COVID, that the American diet is still very broken. And so I believe one of the main missing links in our diet is this life force that comes from these living foods. Because if you think about it, you're a living body, right? Just like you drive a fast car, if you give it shit gas, it's not going to go very fast. Same thing with our body. I see us as, especially myself, as a high performance machine, and we need to feed ourselves with high quality fuel, and living food is it.
Married?
Yes.
Any kids?
2 on the way.
Twins?
Well, so
or 2 wives with 2 different. How do you have two on the way? I want to hear this one. Okay.
So I married my husband a year ago.
Okay.
And because we're gay, we can't do it the old-fashioned way.
Yeah.
So we have 2 eggs. One's mine, one's his. Mine's the girl. His is the boy. 2 surrogates. So his,
good for you.
We did the transfer in August. So his baby, who's a boy, the expected name is Bloom, and he'll be born in May, which is Taurus, just like my mother.
Right.
And then mine is going to be Rain, and we actually just did this transfer this last Friday, and the expected date for her is going to be in August. So I must admit, I'm very excited by it, but I am terrified.
It's going to be the best years. Well, I'll tell you, I'll be honest. Okay. The first 6 months kind of sucks.
Really?
The first 4 months. But then they come to life and it just like gets better and better and better and better and better. I mean, wow. My kids are growing, but I still remember my daughter's first words, my son's just growing up. He was a little slower. He's like, girls go a bit quicker than boys.
Yeah, they're smarter than guys.
Yeah. He's running circles around him. He's probably caught up when he was 23. But he's amazing now. But yeah, I got to tell you, it's probably the most, I would be shocked if you don't tell me in 10 years it's not the most rewarding years of your life,
Yeah. What was and sorry to ask you a question,
Sure.
but what's the most significant impact that your children had on your life?
I think for me, it was my children that really were the power behind my comeback. Mm-hmm. That when I had lost everything and I found myself in jail and having to kind of reconcile all the insanity that had been my life, and people would say, how'd you use those months in jail? So 22 months, and I taught myself how to write.
Yeah.
And I ended up writing this book that became a movie that created a life that I would never have imagined. There were many nights when I felt like I couldn't go on, or it was just really tough when you're away in jail like that. And I guess, as I said, I'm the only guilty man in Shawshank. I knew I was guilty. I wasn't like, oh, I'm innocent, I'm rolling. I'm fucking guilty, I deserve to go to jail, I made some, so you have no one to blame but yourself, So in those tough nights when you're alone with your thoughts, sometimes you feel like you can't go on. And whenever I felt like that, I would close my eyes and I'd imagine the faces of my children. And I said to myself, there's no way I'm going to give up. I'm going to come back and show my children that their dad can do it right. That dad can be a force for good. Because I was very famous when I was very young. They'd seen things like they knew their dad was not just an average everyday guy. I was in the newspaper all the time. We lived with mansions and yachts and jets. It was crazy,
Yeah.
So, and then that fall from grace, and then my children, still very young, 7 and 5, really 6 and 4 when it first happened. And then growing up those few years before I went to jail, trying to watch and make sense of what happened to their dad. And I said to myself, I'm never going to I'm not going to go down for my children not knowing their dad's a good man, a role model for them, and someone that could really inspire them to live a great life. And I used the power of my love for my children to come back from that. And I wrote this book, and I would have never guessed it would have amounted to the life I have today. So I think, part of becoming successful is knowing what truly motivates you. And typically it's not money. Money's the least powerful of all motivators. I talk about finding your why and your purpose. For me, my why was my children. My why was coming back to show my children that their dad was a good man that can do it well and be a role model to them. And because of that, I had the power to overcome anything that was thrown at me.
Right.
So I think part of success for anyone is finding out what's your why. It's going to be either someone you love unconditionally or a cause you believe in more than yourself. That's what your true power is. Once you got that, you can harness that, you become unstoppable.
Right. That's beautiful. So your kids essentially gave you a will to live and gave you a new
certainly a will to live well.
Yeah.
And I think I never worried that I'd not make money.
Right.
Making money has always been very easy for me. But this idea that I was going to live a very different type of life, that what my life would come to mean, I was determined to show my children that dad was a good guy. That they should be proud of their father. It was very important to me. For whatever reason, it just was. Yeah. And I was aware of it, and I used it as a fuel to ignite this motivation inside me that carried me through 2 tough years and a year of writing the book, and then the rest, as I say, is history. You know?
Wow, that's beautiful.
So now you have 2 children coming on your own, and you're gonna get those. You're gonna love them more than you could ever possibly imagine. And so, what's next for you now? It's just about growing your business. Does your partner work with you in the business or separately?
No, my partner's an attorney, and I'm actually the son of an attorney. And I always say, what's worse than being a son of a bitch is being a son of an attorney. So
same thing.
Yeah, it's very similar. I mean, what's next for me is that, one of the reasons why I'm having kids is that, I feel that this world has become so incredibly dark and so riddled with challenges. And I think that we all need to kind of channel the light, if you will, and work together to make positive change. And I really do feel, and I pray and hope that my kids that I'm able to raise to be incredible human beings that will be part of that positive change in this world. And so that's my next mission, is that I realized several years ago that the one thing that absolutely without a doubt makes me happy is to see other people be happy and to be a part of that. And so, it's a very simple thing that I'm after, is I just, again, as cheesy as it sounds, I want to make the world a better place.
It's not a cheese. It's a good outcome. Yeah. Anyway, listen, I'm a big fan of yours. I love it. Thank you, GT Dave. Everybody, how do they find out more about you and check out? Where do they find kombucha right now?
Absolutely. So you can go to our website, which is gtslivingfoods.com.
Okay.
You can go to our Instagram and other social handles at GT's Kombucha. And then I'm GT Dave 3. And you can find me on Instagram as well as Facebook and all that.
All right. Everyone, check it out. I'm going to try it tonight, actually. I'm going to send my Ashley, not your Ashley. I'm going to send my Ashley. We have the same assistant name. And listen, thanks for coming on the show. You're awesome. Everyone, another great episode of The Wolf's Den. Make sure you share this with all your friends. Check it out, and check out kombucha. It sounds like an amazing product, and I know people that swear by it, so I'm going to give it a whirl tonight.
Thank you.
All right, take care. Talk to you next week. All right, this next section here is about business and making lots of money. Here's the deal. I'm having a small group of people over to my home in Los Angeles, and the question all of them are asking is, what's next in life? These are people who've had massive success already, and they're looking to see what's that one thing, that one distinction that will take them to the next level of money and success. So maybe getting close right now to that 7 figures a year. Maybe you're trying to get to 8 figures a year. The point is that this is an opportunity for you right now to come to my house in Beverly Hills, Los Angeles here, right? And join with 9 other people, all of them ultra high achievers, to attend my Mastermind event, which is led by me. Now, what's going to happen here is very special, and it's going to be nothing short of life-changing. You and this group of top business leaders are going to spend the weekend with me in intense, regimented brainstorming sessions, where you're also going to get to have some time, about an hour or more, with one-on-one consulting with me personally, along with a special breakout session where I'm going to be sharing the most cutting-edge secrets of sales, marketing strategy, things I'm using myself right now to scale my own businesses in a massive way. But the real magic, by the way, of this mastermind is you're also going to get to sit in the hot seat in front of all these other top performers. In other words, every person in the mastermind is going to have that opportunity for an hour or more to sit in the hot seat, where all the collective energy, brain power, and experience will be laser guided on you, focused on you and your company, and helping you take things to the next level. Things that you thought were impossible before this day will start to become very possible for you as soon as you leave. When this is over, you're going to go home feeling energized, with new ideas, new plans, and most importantly, a network of very powerful new contacts who are going to help you make them happen fast. In other words, I'm opening up my entire Rolodex to you, as all the people who are attending to do the same. I'm telling you, the results that you're going to get here from this mastermind will be nothing short of staggering. Now, a little bit about how this actually works. First, you're going to fly into Los Angeles, and my driver, Abdul, will pick you up at the airport. We'll have your favorite drinks waiting for you at my house. We'll also have a world-class chef there to cater some of the best meals you've ever had. This is going to be fun, and it's going to be about learning and business and camaraderie, all the best things in life wrapped up into one. I guarantee you will walk out of this mastermind event with a new, improved, much bolder and more powerful vision for your future, a new plan, and massively powerful new context to take your life and your business to the next level. So what you need to do right now is go to jordanbelfort.com/mastermind and apply. That's jordanbelfort.com/mastermind and apply right now. Do not miss this opportunity. It's once in a lifetime and it's life-changing. All right, real quick, listen, if you're a CEO, you're a sales manager, or you're involved in hiring for your company, I want you to check out my new organization, Straight Line Hiring. What we do is we deliver expertly trained salespeople to companies like yours. World-class salespeople trained by me and delivered to you on demand. Go to my website, jordanbelfort.com. Check out Straight Line Hiring, the only way to grow your company with certainty.